Hey everyone, this is Nona from the Alliance Lover. I'm back with another bikini bottoms video. We're looking at strictly bikini bottoms and how they fit on certain bodies on the Frankie's bikini site. So only bikini bottoms. And we'll get straight into it. This first one is a bit of a tricky one if you're shorter and if you have hip dips. So if you're more petite with a shorter torso or shorter proportions overall, and you have a little bit of hip dip, I would stay away from this because this V or high cut bikini really depends on that shape being upheld by your body. So if you have a longer torso, this is going to fit you much more accurately because the bikini has space to lay flat. Whereas if you have a shorter torso, it's going to form this rounder U shape. Trust me, I have tried the shape and it does not work on me. I'm 5'3" with a little bit of hip dip and I'm not happy with this. So if you have a longer torso, really great. As far as the booty goes, if you have a little bit more flesh on the hips or the sides of the butt, this is also much more flattering. But if you're very straight and you're long, I would stay away from this. You know, this really requires a stretched out kind of guitar or hourglass shaped body. Next one is the Enzo Satin Cheeky Bikini Bottom. This is great for people with just the opposite of what we just talked about. So if you look at this model, she looks great in this bikini. Her waist is not the traditional hourglass shape. She has a bit of a shorter waist, and from her rib cage to her waist, she's a bit more straight, but then her hips kind of fan out a little bit. So she goes like this. And this is really flattering for that because the V in the front is not so dependent on height to maintain its shape. It's more of a slight V. And then the thinner straps in the back really expose more of that hip. So again, she's straight from the waist, then she goes out at the hip. So this is great if you have a similar body type. If your hips don't go out, it's not going to look the same. If you're straighter and you don't have as much flesh on your bottom, this is just not going to look as flattering as it does on her. So I would go for this if you're short-waisted, slightly short-waisted, with a bit more of a round bottom and slightly wider hips. Next up, we have the Tia String Satin Bikini Bottom. Again, look at the front. This is a very V-shaped high-cut bikini. This looks great if the sides, you know, the little tops of the bikini strings are going to sit on top of your hip bone. So again, not great if you're really short, not great if you have hip dip. The tops of the bikini right here, they need to sit somewhere that has a bit more of a contrast point to it. So some kind of curve needs to be present. If you're very straight there, if you're very short there, what's going to happen if you're very straight, it's not going to sit on any contrasting curve and you're not going to have that same effect. And if you're really short, what's going to happen is the sides of the strings are going to sit really close to the bottom of your rib cage and it's going to look really awkward, or it's going to sit like just somewhere where it's kind of erasing or distracting from your more delicate, subtle curves. So I would not recommend that for shorter women, more petite, shorter waisted women, straighter waisted women. This works well, again, if you have a smaller waist and then a bigger hip and your hip bone is slightly higher so that it has something to sit on top of. If your hips are lower on the body, again, this is going to look awkward. It's going to look like a normal G-string bikini that you just pulled higher and it's not going to look right. So great if your hip bones are higher, but the hip bones do fan out from the actual waist. Oh, and as for butt in this one is just so revealing. I ideally you'd have like a little upside down heart shape, because this just shows off everything. I don't recommend this shape for like family trips or anywhere there are children, because it calls for awkward situations. But if you're in an adult club or like a beach club, if you're trying to get a nice tan, go for it. But don't try to play, too aggressive sports in this one. Okay, next one, the Marina Satin Cheeky Bikini Bottom. Same thing as the first one. You need to have that kind of hip contrasting curve point for the actual sides of the bikini to sit on top of, or else it's just going to cut into you at strange angles and places. So if you're too short for it, just stay away from it. If you're too straight, stay away from it, because you really do need that whoosh kind of shape. And it's also great if you have a bit more flesh on the sides of the hip, the sides of the butt, especially the upper hip and the upper butt. Again, because we're creating a sort of a hanging shape for this really high cut bikini to exaggerate. Next, we have the Eden striped skimpy bikini bottom. This is great for bigger hips. So even if you don't have the smallest waist, but your hips do go out, some call it guitar hips, it's really flattering because it just captures you at your widest, and at the back and at the front, the little triangle tends to make everything look a bit more perky. It's not creating like this weird tent like the super high bikinis tend to create. It's much more flattering. Regardless of how tall you are, this is great for tall and short-waisted ladies with a bit more of a wide hip. Especially great if you have wide hips but then a shorter backside. Some women have a longer glutes, and this one's really great for the shorter, more contained, slightly rectangular shape. Okay, next we have the Nagachi Cheeky Stripes Bikini Bottom. This one's pretty standard. I think this is a very, very standard, flattering shape. It's cheeky, but compared to the really popular shapes we see today, everything bordering on thong bikinis, this is pretty conservative. This would look really flattering on anyone with hips, longer to medium-sized butt or length butt. If you have a very short bottom, this might not be the best one because it'll kind of just take over and flatten everything. So if you have a bit more length, this will not overly contain it. And the front has a bit of an asymmetry to it, so it's going to exaggerate a bit of your hip curve a little bit more. So it's just a very flattering, safer option for many body types. Next, we have the Sawyer Terry Cheeky Bikini Bottom. This one's really cute for petite bodies or more straight athletic bodies, especially with the shorter kind of glute length here. So this is really cute if you're straighter, if you're shorter, because it's not dependent on any V shape. You don't need to have hips to hinge these the bottoms on, so the sides don't need to hinge on a curving point. The front is, it's very standard. It has good coverage. It's not going to exaggerate anything. The back is not really exaggerating anything, and since there is a bit of a a thinner band on the side and a gradual swoosh of the bottoms, it will help bring everything into a more contained look, if that makes sense. So it adds a little bit of visual support by giving a gradual angle, as opposed to something that's like a very harsh swoop or harsh angle that tends to amplify any non-standard shapes you may have. So this is also a really great safe option for more petite, more athletic, or straighter shapes. Okay, this is the Harmony Terrython bikini bottom. It's a thong bikini. If you're gonna wear a thong bikini, I'm just going to assume that you're sunbathing and you're not going to be walking around for miles or playing beach volleyball. Honestly, I think that this bikini bottom looks great on anyone who's lying on their stomach and stays there. It's just really hard to find a thong bikini that looks great on people who don't have that upside down apple shape without hip dips, because I think that's kind of the model that they based this shape off of. Just my honest opinion, you know. So that's all I have to say about this one. So here we have the Connor Terry Cheeky bikini bottom. Again, do you see the high cut? Same exact points apply. Look at her hip bones. You know, she has the hip bones and that curve needed to keep that V shape intact. If you don't have all of that hip and all of that room, this might overwhelm you. That's why I keep saying don't go for this if you're more petite, because usually you don't have the hip proportion for these standard size, high-waisted, high-cut bikini bottoms. So same applies to the other very similar ones. Next, we have this Terry Cheeky bikini bottom. Again, this is really cute for more petite or athletic, straighter shapes. It's also cute for curvier shapes if you have, say, a bigger upper hip, but then you don't have as much on the lower hip, because this little curve on the back is a little bit more flattering and more forgiving. So it's not going to lay flat against the area that you're the smallest. So flattering for smaller sizes and for upper glute, upper hip dominant backsides. So this one is the Marty full coverage bikini bottom. I just wanted to throw this in because it's an option and some of you might want this option. It looks like a cover up, but it's actually part of the bikini. And since it's covering you up, I'm going to say that, you know, it looks like what you look like in a mini skirt. So if you like that, this is a good option for you. Okay, so here we have the Nikki Crochet Hipster bikini bottom. This one is a little bit more high-waisted. It's almost up to her belly button. So this is great if you are, I would say, petite and more curvy. So if you have a very small waist and a more rounded hip and glute section, this would be really cute, like most slightly higher waisted bikini bottoms. Or if you're tall and a little bit more straight, this will look more like cute and adorable on you. It won't necessarily make you look more curvy, but it'll still work. I wouldn't wear this if you're short and straight, because then this will probably look kind of like a oversized crocheted mini skirt on you. And if you're very tall and very curvy. I would say that due to the squared shape of this bottom, it's not going to really play well with curves. So if you're shorter and curvier, this will have enough fabric and leeway, but if you're curvier and taller, it's going to impose this kind of square shape on you, which is not the best. Okay, next we have the Ingrid Crochet Bikini Bottom. This one is an interesting one because the front looks like it should belong on a very high cut V bikini, but the actual strings are not so dramatic and placed so high on the hips. So that being said, if we kind of look at the back, or what we can see from the back, it's kind of like this strange thong bikini shape with just a little bit of extra. This is great if you already have that upside down heart-shaped butt. Otherwise, if you're a bit flatter or smaller or straighter along the sides, this is just going to look like you glued a triangle on your backside, because this doesn't have that much curve to it, so it's not really going to follow any of your curves. It's just going to kind of sit there, not really contributing, in my opinion. Okay, this is the Jalonda Floral Terry Bikini Bottom. These cute little shorts are great if you have a shorter, smaller butt. If you have a really big butt, or round butt, or long butt, or really big hips, this is gonna, no matter what size, look a little off on you, because the whole point of this is to look like little boy shorts. It's a bit more of a cute and adorable kind of shape. It's not like the sexiest shape. So this is great if you have a more kind of like young teenager shape where you're not super curvy. And then this very playful, more sporty kind of shape makes sense on your body. But if you're a bit more womanly in your curves, this will look a little too rectangular on you. Okay, this is the high waist bikini bottom. So again, with a high waist, you want to make sure that you have a smaller waist than your hips. You don't have to be like the hourglass shape, but you do need bigger hips than your waist, or else it's going to sit really strangely on your body. This really depends on that curve. Trust me, I have seen this on many different body types, and when you are a bit more straight and you wear these very high-waisted shapes, what happens is that the band at the top becomes the widest point, and then your hips disappear, and then your butt disappears. So if you have a small waist and a little bit of booty, this is really great. And this is the last one. This is the Jalonda Hipster Bikini Bottom. So this is a kind of boy short that looks better than the other one on curvier or wider hips, because if you look at the bottom here, there's a bit more of that curve, and then we have this very flattering kind of contrast with the direction of the waistband and then the bottom of it. So it'll make everything a little bit more perky looking, because the visual cue is at the center. So it's like kind of visually making this little like squish or this perk on the butt, which is very flattering. If you have wider hips, if you have straighter hips, what this will do is kind of push everything up, so you'll look a little bit more perky. Be careful, because you might end up looking a little boxy. But this is a really good conservative cut, more boy short friendly cut for curvier body types. So that's what I have for today. I went through a lot of their popular shapes, and everything else seems to be a kind of variety or variation of that shape. Remember just to pick a bikini that's comfortable for you. But also, if you know you're self-conscious and if you know that people are going to be taking pictures of you and you don't want to die inside when you end up in a candid, sometimes it's just better to take the extra effort and time to find bikini bottoms that are more flattering on you if we're going to be real. You know, I know a lot of us are all about total self-love and self-acceptance, but if you do want to look your best and you just hate looking like you're wearing something that's totally not fit for you, it really makes sense to put in the extra research and effort and try the bikinis on if you can. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye.